Ethan Parker had always believed love was a distant dream, one that belonged to everyone else but him. At 28, wheelchair-bound after a car accident 3 years ago, he had mastered independence yet carried a quiet ache for connection. His apartment was neat, practical, filled with books and soft lighting, reflecting a life carefully controlled. But control, he often realized, could not protect the heart. Today, he arrived at Rosewood Weddings, his modest job as a wedding coordinator's assistant giving him both purpose and proximity to fleeting happiness. The hall buzzed with pre-ceremony chaos, florists arranging blooms, caterers rushing trays, bridesmaids fussing over gowns. Ethan maneuvered his wheelchair smoothly between the flurry of activity, noting every detail. He had learned that in weddings, precision could mask the chaos of real life, something he secretly envied. That it was there he first saw Lucas Bennett. Lucas moved with effortless charm, tall and broad-shouldered, his tailored suit hinting at wealth but not ostentation. Ethan noticed the small details, a designer watch peeking from under a cuff, polished shoes that caught the light. Lucas wasn't just handsome, he carried a quiet confidence that demanded attention without needing to speak. And for reasons Ethan could not articulate, the man's eyes seemed to linger, even in the crowded room. Ethan's heart quickened, a familiar flutter he hadn't felt in years. He reminded himself that this was impossible. Lucas was polished, worldly, and clearly accustomed to admiration. Ethan was, ordinary, bound to his chair, cautious in every interaction. Yet something about Lucas's gaze, warm, yet curious, made Ethan feel seen in a way he had long forgotten. "Ethan, could you check the seating arrangement for table 5, called Miriam, the head coordinator." Ethan nodded and rolled over, keeping Lucas in the corner of his vision. Lucas's attention didn't waver, he moved closer under the guise of assisting with decor. "You have a remarkable eye for details," Lucas said, his voice low, almost conspiratorial. "I wouldn't have noticed that the ribbon on the archway was slightly crooked." Ethan blinked, momentarily flustered. Compliments weren't new, but sincerity in them was rare. "Thanks. I guess I've had a lot of practice," he replied, attempting casualness while his pulse spiked. Their conversation lingered on minor things, flowers, lighting, table numbers, but beneath it simmered something unspoken, a gentle spark of intrigue. Ethan caught himself smiling, a subtle shift that hadn't occurred in months. Lucas's attention, while polite, carried a quiet insistence, a focus that felt dangerously personal. As the afternoon progressed, Ethan found himself drawn into Lucas's orbit. Lucas insisted on helping him adjust a centerpiece, brushing against his hand in a fleeting, almost accidental touch. Ethan felt warmth rush through him, mingling with a nervous anticipation. He was painfully aware of the physical divide, the wheelchair, but Lucas treated him with ease, as though the chair did not define him. Yet Ethan's mind whispered caution. People like Lucas were used to attention, to admiration that came easily. And Ethan, he was often overlooked, invisible in ways that hurt more than they protected. Still, there was a sincerity in Lucas's demeanor, a rare openness that made Ethan's heart ache with possibility. As the sun began to set, casting golden light over the floral arrangements, Lucas leaned closer, lowering his voice. "There's something I need to show you, away from the crowd. Just for a few minutes." Ethan hesitated, a swirl of curiosity and trepidation battling in his chest. He wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain the safety of his carefully constructed boundaries. But the warmth in Lucas's eyes, the promise of a connection he had almost forgotten, drew him in. Rolling alongside Lucas toward the garden, Ethan felt a strange mixture of fear and exhilaration. This moment, fleeting and quiet, promised something extraordinary. And though he didn't yet understand the depth of what was coming, he could feel the first threads of change weaving into his life. As they disappeared behind the arching hedges, the wedding hall's noise faded into the background. Ethan's heart pounded, not from the wheelchairs or the bustling event, but from the possibility that this day might be the beginning of something he had long believed was impossible. Morning arrived with the slow gentleness of regret. The rain had stopped, leaving the forest damp and shimmering under thin strands of sunlight. The cabin was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of old wood. Ethan woke early, his mind still tangled in fragments of the night before, Noah's words, the silence that followed, and the undeniable truth he could no longer ignore that he sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the faint sound of water dripping from the eaves outside. Everything felt heavier, as if the air itself had absorbed their unspoken confession. He wasn't sure what frightened him more, what had been revealed, or what it meant about himself. When Ethan stepped into the kitchen, Noah was already there, standing by the stove, making coffee. His back was turned, posture rigid, shoulders tight. He didn't look up when Ethan entered. "Morning," Ethan said, voice hesitant. "Morning," Noah replied softly, still facing the window. The usual warmth in his tone was gone, replaced by something cautious, fragile. Liam stumbled out of his room moments later, yawning loudly, breaking the tension without realizing it. "You two are up early," he said, rubbing his eyes. "Guess I slept through the storm." Ethan forced a smile. "Yeah, you did." Noah poured the coffee into 3 mismatched mugs and handed one to Liam, another to Ethan. Their fingers brushed briefly, and Ethan felt that same quiet electricity rush through him again, quick, uninvited, impossible to ignore. Breakfast passed in strained normalcy. Liam talked about plans for their drive back, the traffic, the weather, every topic safe and surface level. Ethan responded when necessary, but his mind drifted. Every glance toward Noah was a reminder of the space that had opened between them, and how easily it could break everything if either of them crossed it again. After clearing the dishes, Liam went outside to check the car. As soon as the door closed, Noah finally spoke. His voice was calm, but his hands trembled slightly. "About last night," he began. Ethan looked up, meeting his eyes for the first time that morning. "You don't have to say anything," Ethan said quickly, though he wanted him to. Noah shook his head. "No, I do. I shouldn't have said what I said. It wasn't fair to you." Ethan hesitated. "It wasn't wrong either." Noah's gaze softened. "Maybe not. But it complicates things." Ethan nodded slowly. "Things were already complicated. We just stopped pretending they weren't." For a moment, neither spoke. The silence carried an odd kind of understanding, one that didn't need words. Whatever had existed between them now lived in that space, quiet and unacknowledged but undeniably real. When Liam called from outside, they both startled slightly, breaking eye contact. "Car's ready." Liam shouted through the door, "Coming." Noah answered quickly. They packed their things in near silence. Every shared glance carried the weight of what couldn't be said. On the drive back, Liam filled the car with stories and laughter, trying to recapture the carefree rhythm from before. But Ethan barely heard him. His eyes occasionally drifted to the passenger seat, where Noah stared out the window, lost in his own thoughts. The forest gave way to the open road, then to stretches of farmland and quiet towns. It felt like traveling not just through distance, but through everything unspoken between them. When they finally reached the city, Liam dropped Ethan off first. "Good trip, huh?" Liam said, grinning. "Yeah," Ethan replied. "It was." Noah turned slightly, managing a small, uncertain smile. "Take care, okay?" Ethan nodded. "You too." As the car pulled away, Ethan stood on the curb, watching until it disappeared from view. A strange stillness settled over him, not emptiness, but acceptance. The trip had given him something he hadn't expected, not love, not closure, but truth. That evening, alone in his apartment, he opened his journal, something he hadn't done in years, and began to write. He wrote about how love sometimes arrives disguised as confusion, how silence can hold entire conversations, and how truth, once seen, can never be unseen. That he ended the entry with a line that felt like both confession and release. "That trip didn't break us, it revealed us." Sometimes, love doesn't ask to be understood. It only asks to be honest. He closed the journal and sat in the fading light, a faint sense of peace settling over him. Whatever had happened between him and Noah would remain theirs, a quiet story written between heartbeats, carried forward not with regret, but with understanding. "And though that night changed everything, it also set me free." Ethan Parker did not answer immediately. He studied the grain of the wooden table, the faint water ring from a forgotten glass, the ordinary details that suddenly felt like anchors.
Noah Collins watched him with patience that carried its own weight, not pressing, not rescuing. "I need you to say something," Noah said. "Even if it's hard." Ethan nodded. His voice, when it came, surprised him with its steadiness. "I didn't cheat," he said. The words were true, and yet insufficient. "But I crossed a line I shouldn't have." Noah's eyes flickered, not with anger, but with recognition. "With who?" "Lucas." The name landed between them, soft and final. Noah leaned back in his chair, absorbing it. He didn't interrupt. That restraint felt like kindness and consequence all at once. Ethan continued, careful not to defend himself, careful not to dramatize. He spoke of the night stranded by the storm, of the closeness that arrived without permission, of the silence afterward that had grown heavier each day. He admitted what mattered most, that he had enjoyed being seen in a way he hadn't realized he'd been missing. When he finished, the room felt larger, emptied of pretense. Noah exhaled slowly. "Thank you for telling me," he said. "I wish you'd done it sooner." "I know." Noah rubbed his palms together, a nervous habit Ethan recognized. "It hurts," Noah said plainly. "Not because you wanted someone else. Because you didn't trust me with that wanting." Ethan's throat tightened. "I was afraid of what it would mean." "It means we weren't talking enough," Noah said. "And that you let someone else fill a space you should have brought to me." The clarity in Noah's voice was harder to bear than anger would have been. Ethan nodded, accepting the shape of the truth. "I'm sorry," he said. "I don't want to lose you." Noah looked at him for a long moment. "I don't know if wanting is the same as choosing," he said. "And right now, I need to choose myself." The words were not a door slammed shut. They were a pause. A boundary. Ethan understood that this, too, was love, protective, self-respecting, unwilling to be diminished. They agreed to take space. Not as a punishment, but as an honest reckoning. Ethan packed a small bag that night, his movements slow and deliberate. Noah stood by the door, hands in his pockets. "This isn't the end of the world," Noah said quietly. "But it is a turning point." "I know," Ethan replied. When the door closed behind him, the apartment felt suddenly like a place he no longer belonged to, and that knowledge settled without cruelty. It was the cost of the choice he hadn't fully realized he'd made. Lucas Reed heard the news 2 days later, delivered without drama in a park where autumn leaves collected along the benches. Ethan did not ask for anything. He simply told the truth. Lucas listened, jaw tight, eyes fixed on a point beyond the trees. "I should have stepped back sooner," he said. "I knew better." "We both did," Ethan replied. Lucas nodded. "I'm not going to be the place you land while you figure this out." Ethan felt a sharp gratitude. "Thank you." They sat in silence for a while, the kind that no longer felt charged. When Lucas stood to leave, he placed a hand briefly on Ethan's shoulder, supportive, final. "Take care of yourself," he said. "For real." Ethan watched him walk away, understanding that some connections were meant to be formative, not permanent. The weeks that followed were quieter than Ethan expected. Pain dulled into clarity. He moved into a small sublet, returned calls he had ignored, relearned how to sit with himself without distraction. He did not rush to repair what he had broken. He let consequences exist. Noah and Ethan spoke occasionally, honest conversations, bounded and respectful. There was no promise made, no future negotiated. Only mutual acknowledgement of what had been lost and what had been learned. One evening, alone with his thoughts, Ethan realized that the night in the hotel room had not changed everything by itself. It had revealed what was already there: unmet needs, avoided conversations, the quiet danger of assuming love could survive without tending. He didn't absolve himself. He didn't condemn himself either. He chose instead to remember, because some secrets don't explode. They unfold. And once they do, you are left not with who you were before, but with the responsibility of who you become next.